Hi everyone and welcome to the channel. Today I'm going to show you how to make this toy brick using VarSets, which will automatically configure depending on the length and height units that you supply. We've also taken into account the 1x1 brick. Now if we look on the bottom, you'll notice that there's a tube here which increases depending on the length units and width units. But when we get to something like 2x2, we only get one tube in here, but we've got 4 stubs. If we shrink this down to a 1 on the length units, you notice the tube disappears. And if we look to the left, we have a strike through the multi-transform and the tube, meaning that these two features are no longer applied to the model. The minute we come out, say by a 2x1, a 2x2, the strike throughs disappear and we get the feature added back to our model. So I'm going to show you how to build this from the ground up using VarSets and the multi-transform. So I hope you enjoy this video and let's have a look how we would tackle such a project like this. If you like what you see and you want to donate to the channel, then you can do so via Ko-Fi or Coffee at ko-fi.com/MANG0 or via PayPal at paypal.com/paypalme/DarrenBEstone. I also run a Patreon where you can get early access and additional content, and that's at patreon.com/MangoJellySolutions. Links can be found in the channel header, on the About page, or in the descriptions of these videos. So I've opened up FreeCAD and I'm going to start a new document in the part design, new body, and a new sketch. Start by building the basics, so the footprint of the brick looking along the XY plane. Let's use a centered rectangle by dropping down the rectangle tool and choosing the center rectangle within and sketching coincident to the center point. Click once, come out, and we'll drop a box in. We can type in the dimensions if we want. If not, then we can use the dimensioning tool. Let's add the dimensions. These are going to be changed once we integrate the VarSet. So just add in 100 for one side, the length, and 50 for the other. Let's close and pad the sketch by clicking on it and using the pad. We'll just give it 10 millimeters and hit OK. That's now integrate the VarSet. Look along the top, we can see a double braces. This is a VarSet. When we click on it, it gets placed within what we've selected. So the body at the moment is highlighted. If the document was highlighted, it will be placed within there. We can still access the VarSet no matter where it's placed in our project. We need a width, length, and height. Now these are going to be units, not millimeter, inches, etc. They're going to be used to control the configuration of the brick. So for that, I'm going to use width units as a name. The group is where it's going to be placed. We can change this if we want. I'm just leaving it as base. The type at the moment is property length. If I click in here and highlight and hit delete, I can start typing in here. So this is the type. At the moment it was length. I just need an integer. What this does, if I type in integer, you'll see property integer appear. This strongly types your project. It makes it faster for FreeCAD to recompute those values. Because it knows the type, it doesn't have to do any conversions. So for instance, if this was a spreadsheet, then under the hood, FreeCAD may change those values, convert the type from text to an integer, and that takes extra time. We can save this processing by defining the type. The property integer, the value at the moment, we'll set this to 2. We can add a tooltip. That's when we roll over the property field, it will show what it is. I'm not going to bother. Let's click add another and then hit OK. Because we clicked add another, we now can add a new property. We can always cancel out if we don't want to. Let's type in height units. Again, we're using the base. The integer is already supplied and the value, we'll change that to 1. Just going to OK that. Let's hit cancel. I'll show you another way of editing the VarSet. So if I click on the VarSet, we can see the values here. If I double click it, then I can add another value. Notice that we get a space between height and units. That's because we've used uppercase in here. So you get this space prepending the next uppercase value. This one's going to be length units. Notice that you can't place a space in here. If I click off, what's going to happen? Click on the field, it's going to complain about an invalid name. So we just delete that. Type length, if we click on that, the value appears, and this is incorrect. So let's change that to integer, the property integer, and the value here we can set to 4. Let's hit OK. So we've got our values. Let's come back to the pad and look inside the pad. So here we set the length of the pad. We're going to click on that length and select the expression editor on the end. So here we'll set the length, which is the height variable. The base height of our brick is 9.6 millimeters. Place in 9.6 millimeters, and then we times that, and we use the VarSet. So VarSet comes up. We got 2 in here. This is the label. This is the internal name. We'll just use the internal name. You can use either or. So VarSet, you can see a dot afterwards. Delete the dot. If I hit dot again, you'll see the individual properties within. Let's pick height units, which is going to be 1. Hit enter and then hit OK. The length is set up, and you notice that we can't actually click in here. If I wanted to clear this, we use the formula editor and then clear the expression, and that allows us to edit that field again. So the VarSet now, height units is 1. I change this to 2 and click off. You notice our model starts changing. Let's set this back to 1 and rig up the rest. We're now going to rig up the sketch constraints. To do that, let's double click the sketch, and we've got the length here. If I double click the 100 millimeters, I'm going to name this. It's optional. Let's type in length and then hit OK. With this one, we'll type in width for the name. Hit OK or enter. The reason why I did that is because if we look along the left hand side, we see we've got a length and width. So I can add the expression via the expression editor here, which I'm going to use 8 millimeters for a basic 1x1 brick, and then times that by the VarSet dot length units. Type in length, or start to type in length, we get that there. Pressing the down key and hit enter again, and we can see that's changed. Notice this has turned to orange to show it's referenced by a formula. And if we hover over the length on the left hand side, you can see the formula there, 8 millimeters times VarSet dot length units. We can't get to the formula editor there, but let's edit the other one. If I hit close, come to the sketch, we can use a shortcut. If we look to the sketch and constraints and open these up now, we get the length and width easily identified because we named them. So now I don't have to come into my sketch. I can come over here and use the formula editor. And again, I'm going to use 8 millimeters, basic 1x1 brick, times VarSet dot width units, and hit OK. So now if I click off, everything changes, and I can change these to whatever size I want. We need to leave some gapping in between the bricks so they fit together properly. This we subtract a 0.1 millimeter from each side of the brick. So we can easily do that. Now we've got these exposed. So let's come into the sketch, come down to the constraints, and you notice how easy this is. Come into the expression editor, and we can just remove minus 0.2. Then you have to specify the millimeters on the end and hit OK. Let's do the same for the width. So minus 0.2 millimeters and hit enter. As we click off, a small adjustment is made. So that's the base. We now have to set up the stubs on top. To do that, let's select the top face and create a sketch upon it. Using the circle, create a simple circle, not constrained to anything just yet. Right click to cancel, use the create external geometry tool to import the top point, right click to cancel, and then use the dimensioning tool, taking this point and then clicking this point, so dimension from here, come out, move down, and then we get the height dimension. And this is going to be 3.9 millimeters, and hit OK. Let's add in horizontal length, and we need to come down this way, so below. This one's 3.9 millimeters as well. Let's set some dimensions and set this with a diameter of 4.8 millimeters. Let's zoom in, and we can neaten up our constraints so we can see them more easily. Let's hit close, make sure the sketch is selected, which it is, and we pad it by 1.8 millimeters. We've got our first stub. Let's change the VarSet. Just bring down the length units to 4 and the width units to 2. Also, the height units, let's change this to 1. We'll create a linear pattern of the stub to pattern this way and also this way. That'll be controlled via the VarSet. To do that, let's rename the pad. Let's type in stud pad. We'll select the stud and then use the multi-transform. Now we don't use the linear pattern because we're going to pattern a pattern. So we have to use the multi-transform, creating 2 transforms. To use the multi-transform, we right click and then add the pattern that we need. So we need a linear pattern. It's going to ask us what direction the transform is going to go in. Horizontal sketch axis, vertical sketch axis, and because we've modeled this around the base planes, I'm going to use base X. Just makes it more visual with the axes that you see on screen. We can't see the studs at the moment. We look down, the length is 100 millimeters. Let's change the offset. So this is the offset between the studs. Now I'm going to change the offset value to 8 millimeters. If we still don't see the studs, then we may have to use the reverse. At the moment I've got 2 and you can see them there. Let's increase the occurrences to 4. So we've got 4 occurrences going across here. If we look back to our model and look back to the VarSet, notice the length units is 4. So that means we can use the VarSet to control the studs. Back to the task, where we're editing the multi-transform, look at the occurrences, use the little button on the end of the expression editor, and we'll type in VarSet. This one's going to be length units. We know when we get the right one because the result will be what we're expecting. Let's hit enter again. We've now rigged up the linear pattern for the studs, but we need to create the studs going this way. So that's OK, the current transformation, and then right click and add a linear pattern. So now we're patterning the previous pattern. This one, this time, is going along the y-axis. Again, the mode, we've got overall length. Let's go for offset, and we can change the offset to 8 millimeters. Notice the transformation has gone this way. So it's successful, but it's off the solid. Doesn't create a solid object. Let's reverse the direction. And now we get the studs that we need. Again, the occurrences. Let's rig up the occurrences. We need 2, which is going to be the VarSet dot width units. C2 in there, hit enter and hit OK. Hit OK once more, and then finally one last OK. Now I've got the VarSet rigged up to the length. We can just test that. So we put 6 in here, width, let's say 7, and that's all working. Let's just reset this to 4 and 2, and now we can draw our attention to the base. Now it's important that you keep the VarSets for the time being above 1. We're going to deal with a little challenge towards the end of this video. So let's create the tube now. Click off to make sure nothing's selected, and then select the face on the bottom. We've selected that face there. Let's create another sketch. And I'm going to hollow out the base. Now I'm not going to use a thickness. Now there's a reason for that. I'm just going to use a center rectangle. Place that in there. Just right click to cancel, and then use the import geometry and import the top point. Right click to cancel again, and we'll dimension that point using the dimensioning tool between this point and this point. Just zoom in a bit so we can see what we're doing. And we'll move off to the side. We'll place 1.6 millimeters in here and do the same for the top. Again, 1.6 and hit close. So I'm going to pocket this into the brick. But why don't we use the thickness? Well, if I did use the thickness on this face, our thickness at the moment is 1 millimeter, which, as you can see, is working. But if we increase this to 1.6, it fails. This is more than likely because we have intersecting lines within here. If we look at what's happening inside, the thickness is going into the stubs. The more that thickness increases, let's try not to get it into error. The more this geometry closes in on itself, and the more chance of intersecting edges and the thickness failing. Of something like 1.5. It's right on the edge of 1.5. So this is not going to be any good for us. Let's cancel that and zoom out. So we've got the sketch and we apply the pocket. And the length, we use the expression editor on the end. And we want this to be our first pad. Dot length. We've got 9.6 millimeters and we're minus wall thickness, which is 1.6 millimeters. And then hit OK. And then OK again. So now we've got the correct thickness. Let's add the tube. There's multiple ways of doing this. We could use the face within and pad down to the base plane in line with this, or we could use the base plane, pad up to face to connect with this, or we could attach a sketch upon this face. So let's select the face within and create a new sketch. For this, we'll use a simple circle. I'm not going to attach it to anything. We'll just place it here. Right click to cancel. Let's use the external geometry tool and import the top left point. Right click to cancel again. Let's set the dimensions using the dimensioning tool from the top point to the middle point. 7.9 millimeters in each direction. Let's set the dimension of the circle. This is the inner circle, 4.8 millimeters. So we've got our circle. Now there's one thing we need to be careful of here. And now this is a thing that I've just edited out, but I'm going to put it back in. Now if I create a circle, hover over the center point and bring this out, and then type in into the field that you can see on screen, 6.5 millimeters. Notice what's happened. The circle has vanished inwards. So it looks like there's some kind of bug there. It might be auto-constraining to the other circle. I'm not sure what's happening there. And you notice down the bottom that we have two circles. If we don't see this like what I've just done and create another circle in here, the minute we come out and select that sketch and pad it, you can see what's happening. We haven't got the hollow within. So let's cancel that and come back into the sketch. So we need to delete that circle. Now I believe it's this one. So we can see this circle here. And if I click on the ticks on the end, that hides the circles. So we know it's this one. Click on it and hit delete. And that's show the other circle and this one as well. We just have to be wary of that when using the circle tool and dimensioning that straight off. So that's add the dimension to the outer circle of 6.5. And let's hit close. I do like to keep stuff like that in my projects so you know the pitfalls and how to get out of them. Let's click on the sketch and create a pad. Now we need to pad this in line with this face here. So let's come up to the type and use the up to face and select the face. So now I've selected this face here, this should be in line. And let's hit OK. So we've got our first tube. Now we can create a linear pattern. Let's come over to the pad, right click and rename, and change that to tube, and hit enter. To create a linear pattern of the tube, select the tube, and then again use the create multi-transform. Right click and add a linear pattern. Let's use the X base axis. Again, we use the mode of offset and change the offset to 8mm. So the occurrence is, if we increase this to 3, you can see those are all in there. Let's use the expression editor. We're using the VarSet, and we want length units. Now you can see the length units is 4. So all we do is -1 off of that. Now we've got the 3, correct number of occurrences, and hit OK. Let's just hit OK and OK again. So at the moment, the length is being controlled. So if I set this to say 7, we get the right amount, but we need to set the width units as well. So let's set this to 3. So you can see we need the width units to pull the linear pattern across here. That's easy to do. Let's double click on the multi-transform. Note that I've not used a 1x1 brick yet. We'll get to that in a minute, and add a linear pattern. So we're patterning the previous pattern. This time, base y-axis. We need the overall length to offset, and again, 8mm. It's going the right way so we don't have to use the reverse. The occurrences is correct at the moment. Let's rig this up to our VarSet. VarSet dot width units, which is going to be 3. That's -1. Hit enter. We've got 2, and hit enter again. Let's OK the transformation, and then OK again. So we've got the multi-transform set up with both the stubs and the tubes. Let's bring down the length units to 2 and the width units to 2. We've got our basic brick. So this is 1 brick, and we've got a 2x2. What happens when we go, say, 1x2? Click off. Notice the multi-transform goes into error. Now, if we look, the tube is still there. If I double click on the multi-transform, and I've got to figure out which one it is here. So you can see if I double click on the first one, the occurrences here is 1. And you can see this has gone into error. Multi-transform, at least 1 occurrence required. So we've got a problem. I know the occurrences is 1 here. If I click on the formula editor, you can see the result is 0 because we've -1 off of the length units. Let's close that. We can see at least 1 occurrence required. Let's cancel out. Now, how do we stop this? To solve this issue, we have to suppress our multi-transform. It's going into error, so we need to come up a few features up the tree. So if we go into the transform and look down, we have this suppressed here. If I set this to true, that suppresses the feature, but we still get the tube. So what's happening is this feature is being suppressed and it's going up to the next feature. If I suppress the next feature, right click and suppress is another way and click off. Notice there's a line going through the tube. That's refresh, and the tube's gone as well. And this is the result we want. We can automate that process. Let's go back to the tube, right click and uncheck suppressed, and also to the multi-transform and uncheck suppressed on that. Let's refresh. We get the error. Just going to go into the VarSet and set the length to 2 and the width back to 2. So everything's okay. Let's just click on the message to get rid of it. To automate the suppression of the multi-transform, then we can use an expression. But if we come into this field, you notice we haven't got a button on the end. This is because it's a drop-down field. To access the expression editor, let's come over to the suppressed, the header, and right-click and go to expression. And you notice the result in here at the moment is false. If I set this to 1 and click off and hit OK, the suppressed now is true. So we can use that to our advantage. The 0 is false and 1 is true. Let me just clear that and we get rid of the expression. We're going to now write a condition. So at the moment the suppressed is true. Turn that to false, right click on the header and go to expression. So I want to know if the VarSet dot length units is greater than 1. And that is a question. So we've got a question mark in there. We're using the greater than symbol to find out if it's greater than 1. If it is, the suppressed must equal false. So that is a 0 for false. If not, we use a colon and it equals true, which is a 1. So we've got VarSet.length units greater than 1 question. If so, then we pass a 0, and the colon means if it's not, then we pass a 1. But this is only dealing with the length units. Let's hit OK. That expression has to also be on the tube, and we'll deal with that in a moment. So let's go back to the VarSet and test that. Remember, we're only dealing with length units at the moment. Let's set this to 1. Notice the multi-transform has now got a strike through. If we click on that, the suppressed now equals true. Let's use the VarSet again and set the length units to 2. The strike through no longer appears on the transform, and we're back to the 2x2. Let's come back into the expression, and now we've got to do the same with the width units. Now at the moment, we can't use an AND in here. It's not supported by FreeCAD. Hopefully that will change in the future. So we have to use conditional chaining. So in here we open up the brackets and place VarSet dot width units greater than 1, and then question mark, pull back a 0 if it is, or a 1 if it isn't, and then close the bracket. Then here we need to delete the 0 and use the colon 1. So this is the expression you need. Let's hit OK and test it. So at the moment, the suppressed is false. Let's go to the VarSet. Length units, let's place this as 1. We get a strike through. Let's change that back to 2 and try the width units. With 1, we get a strike through again, and the same with the length units. So we're suppressing the multi-transform. We now need to suppress the tube. Let's come into the suppressed on the multi-transform and right click and go to the expression editor. We'll copy the expression, hit OK, come up to the tube, we look down, we've got suppressed here as well. Let's right click, expression editor, and add the expression by pasting it in and hit OK. Now we've got the expression linked up to both the multi-transform and the tube. Let's test this now. So we've got the VarSet, we've got a 1x1 cube, change this to 2x2. Our multi-transforms disappear. Bring this around this way and test with a 1. You can see them disappearing, and the width as 1, place the length as 2, and the width units as 2, and they disappear. And we're all rigged up for any size cube. Obviously, the larger the cube, the longer it's going to take to calculate. And that's how to use the expression editor the VarSet, and the multi-transform together in a single project. Thanks a lot for that, and look forward to seeing you in the new video. If you like what you see and you want to donate to the channel, then you can do so via Ko-Fi or Ko-fi at ko-fi.com/MANG0 or via PayPal at paypal.com/paypalme/DarrenBEstone. I also run a Patreon where you can get early access and additional content, and that's at patreon.com/MangoJellySolutions. Links can be found in the channel header, on the About page, or in the descriptions of these videos. I thank everybody that's donated so far. It really helps to keep the lights on so I can produce more content and also expand the channel. Thank you for liking, commenting and subscribing to these videos, and I hope to see you again in the next one.